This is Columbus Concerns, a public affairs presentation of North American Broadcasting. Here's your host, Mark Neuse.
And thanks so much for joining us this morning on Columbus Concerns. With us is a friend of mine, Dr. Carol Ventresca, who is the co-host of the Looking Forward Our Way podcast program, focusing on issues of community and affecting those over 50. She's a researcher for the Workforce Development Center and previously the executive director of Employment for Seniors, assisting those 50 and over on the job search. And in that capacity, she has been on this program many times. And Carol, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks, Mark, for the invitation. I'm so glad to see you again.
It is a great topic to talk about, people 50 and over in the workforce. Some people work because they want to and they need a sense of purpose. Some people work because they have to and they need a paycheck. Either way, there is a real value for older job applicants.
There is value to the organizations they're looking to be hired by. But over and above everything else, our younger generations are smaller in size. Mm-hmm. Employers are already having great difficulty finding enough good qualified job applicants. And because of the recent pandemic, a lot of older adults walked away from the employment arena just because of fear of being in large groups.
Right.
They're coming back. However, employers have to sort of open up their vision of their job applicant pool and realize the value of these applicants.
And talk a little bit about, the value of, not only the value of these job applicants, but a lot of them look at the term retirement differently today than they used to.
Oh, absolutely. I'm probably the prime example. I've retired twice, and I'm still going strong and probably have another 10, 15, maybe 20 years of work out there. The difference is that in transitioning into a new work environment, a new work situation, I'm not going to call it retirement. It is this transition. It's a way for people to think about, what do I want to do next? Where can I put my skills? And as you mentioned, it may be because they need to continue working for money. More than likely, it is that they want to continue being engaged within an organization with a group of people. They want to continue using their skills, giving back to their community. Just remain engaged, because those of us who are in those 60s, we consider that to be the new 40. And so we still have lots of things we can do.
And yet there are misconceptions about older workers, and there's still this thing, ageism, where,
right.
But which is one of the only, biases that's still accepted.
Exactly. It is amazing that we can't talk about any other ism except ageism and not get some strange look from the person we're talking to, which is so unfortunate, because there's so much that can happen between a younger person and an older person in a work situation. They're going to teach each other things. The younger person is going to be teaching all the tech. The older person is going to be teaching all those soft skills they have learned over generations of work, over decades of work, and they can support each other in a work environment. We have a matriarch of older workers, older citizens in Central Ohio, who always tells us what's good for a younger person is good for an older person, and vice versa. What's good for an older person is definitely going to be helpful to a younger person.
So if you are someone out there looking for employees, what would you tell them when it comes to those 50 and over?
The first thing, I just want to kind of reiterate what I mentioned about fewer people. Employers need to realize, there was a study done by the Scripps Gerontology Center at Miami University. In 2010, there were only 28 of the Ohio counties that had a higher 60-plus population. By 2050, only 2 counties in Ohio are going to have a less than a smaller 60 plus population. And so, as I said, these population studies are based on what's been going on over many generations. You need to really look at older adults realistically and fairly in your job search, in your pool of candidates.
And what are some of the things they bring to the job?
Over and above everything else, I did mention soft skills. An older adult is going to walk in, number one, they're going to be really excited to work for you and very loyal to you. They're going to be showing up for work. They're going to have fairly good communication skills. And I'm not talking tech. We all know that tech is different for an older adult than a younger person. They have grown up with it.
Right.
It kind of popped into our world later in our lives. However, as I always say to employers, the baby boomers invented the internet. This isn't a surprise to us. We just do it differently. What they will also see is that an older adult is going to come in with transferable skills, but they may need additional skills and some training. So an employer really needs to think about what do I absolutely have to have in an individual, and what can I teach them to do, and how can I get that training to them? An employer doesn't have to take the training on themselves. There are places to go to get that training, and often it's free or very low cost. So think in terms of what are the absolutes that I need, and what can I teach that individual?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that about training and technology. And I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I'm 60, and I was talking to someone who's in her late 50s, and I'm like, you know what? We went from typewriters to doing what we do now, everything online and at a computer, but we had to learn it just like everybody else did. We at our age evolved with the technology. So today, when people look at older workers and they say, well, they don't know anything about technology, that's just not the case.
It's not. And at our agency, we had all of the information on our jobs posted online. Normally, people would go into the website. Well, suddenly we were seeing all of these folks come in, and they were at least 50 coming in with their smartphone, looking up the stuff on their phone. This isn't new. This isn't a surprise, but it may take longer for a person to learn the technology, and they may need to be trained in a different way than a kid who's walking in with all those skills. The one thing, though, that they will do is they will be more careful. They will be more correct because they are approaching it as they have always approached their work situations to do a good job. And you were mentioning, as we get older, we want something different. The other thing employers can look at is flexibility of schedules. And I'm looking at that in two different ways. They could be looking at just needing a little additional time, as opposed to showing up at 8 o'clock, they can come in at 8:30. If you got a mom dropping kids off at school, that's okay. Why isn't it okay if you have an individual who's taking care of their parent and needing to take them to adult daycare in the morning, so they come in at 8:30? But the other thing, too, is oftentimes we only want to work part-time. That's really why I walked away and retired from employment for seniors. I was working 24/7, and I'd done that for 10 years. That was enough. What we can now realize is that there are ways to do job sharing, changing positions into part-time positions from full-time positions. Employers see that as a burden, but in actuality, if you're going to get two really good people, how is that a burden? And it's proven in the statistics from the Department of Labor. There are 4 times more people doing part-time work now than there were before the pandemic, and they've chosen to do part-time. They are telling the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I'm not looking for more hours. These aren't people who got hours cut and looking for a full-time job. They want to be in part-time.
And it seems that especially, younger workers today, especially since the pandemic, are being more demanding about what they want. They want to work from home. They at least part of the time they want to work from home. They want to work different hours. They want flex hours and that kind of thing. So maybe, you have to give the same accommodations to older workers.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Why
in a
would you-
little bit of a different way.
Right. And for years, when we were helping people find jobs, they always kept saying, "Can't I work from home? Isn't there something I can do to work from home?" Well, that's perfect right now. Employers are dying for workers who are working from home. But again, the difference could be they may not have the equipment and the internet access that a younger person has. So that may be where the employer needs to rethink how they evaluate the applicants that they have.
Our guest on the program today is Dr. Carol Ventresca. She's the co-host of the Looking Forward Our Way podcast program. She's also a researcher for the Workforce Development Center and previously executive director of employment for seniors here in Central Ohio. 30-plus years of public service, and much of that dealing with older workers. And talk a little bit about something called the Age-Friendly Innovation Center. What is that?
Oh, it's so exciting. And my shout out to everyone there. Several years, I want to say it was probably about 7 years ago now or so, the Age-Friendly Columbus program began. Age-Friendly Communities is actually an international movement. It started in Europe. AARP brought it to the United States. And we started with Columbus. It grew to Franklin County. And because of different funding models, we were able to move that program into Ohio State University's College of Social Work. Mm-hmm. So Age-Friendly Columbus Franklin County also is now part of what is called the Age-Friendly Innovation Center. What they're looking at is what are the issues and the needs of the senior community today? What is it going to be in 10 years and 20 years down the line? And looking at ways to replicate good programs, create good programs, and then get those programs across the state. So, huge shout out to all of the folks working there. They're doing a marvelous job.
Well, obviously Central Ohio is growing. Central Ohio needs more workers. This is another way to help businesses.
It's really a research-based program, okay. So they're not doing direct services with clients, but if an employer has a question, that's a place that they may be able to go, and if they can't answer the question, they have all the resources to help you find out that information.
And they put together a report?
They did, and this CORA report, it's the Central Ohio Regional Assessment on Aging, is an ongoing program. And they looked at, this is more of that information about who's out there and who's wanting to work. Yeah. They did a survey, and of the 1,375 individuals who were surveyed, 20% were working full-time, 9% part-time, 4% were self-employed. So a third of those folks were working. 5% more were either seeking work or already in a training program to get work. You're looking at a significant number of people. So again, to employers, this is a group of people. Just because somebody's turned 50 or 60 does not mean they aren't a good job applicant.
And it's interesting, too, that some people don't work for money. They work for insurance.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not, that's the other thing. When you're 50, 60, you still got some time before Medicare checks in.
Yeah.
And so there's an issue there of needing to remain in work, not just because of a salary, but because of that insurance tie. One of the suggestions I gave to employers at a recent workshop is, you've got young people on your insurance. An older person comes in with Medicare. However, they probably have a supplement that is costing them out of pocket. Mm-hmm. So and actually there is a cost to Medicare too, but think in terms of what you're providing as benefits to a young person and how that translates to the older person. They need that communication with their employees to see what those issues are.
Are there any industries or specific jobs that are really, really good for older workers, or does it just run the gamut of just about everything?
It really could run the gamut. I would say the only thing that an older worker may shy from is something that's hard physical labor because they've probably been doing it for
Sure.
40 years. But in actuality, it's really more of a notion of how they can provide their skills as value to an employer. So they're probably really good at customer service because they've been working with people for decades. Again, it's the kinds of work that may be repetitive to a younger person, but an older person may be comfortable with that. So it's really depends on what that individual's background is and their skill level. One of the things that I always also tell employers is they need to think more broadly when they're looking at evaluating their older applicants. But I also say to the older applicants, you need to be a good job applicant. You need to be a good job seeker. You need to make sure your resume looks great, your applications you're doing are correct, that your interviewing skills are up to date. An employer needs to remember that individual could have been in a job or with a company for decades and has not been on the job market. They don't know the nuances of how to apply for jobs today.
Well, that's an entire program that we could do on
Yes.
how to apply for jobs in this day and age when human eyes may never see your resume.
Very true, and that is there are ways to make sure that you find those human eyes and get to the individuals who are the critical hiring managers at an organization.
Are people still impressed when you reach out to them and find out what's going on?
Well, because of our podcast program and our mutual friend Brett Johnson and I are out there finding all this information out, so it's been fun to still remain talking to employers and to clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we go any further, you just mentioned the podcast. It's called the Looking Forward Our Way podcast. Where can people find that?
lookingforwardourway.com.
Oh, that makes it easy.
Very easy. And we are on all of the different podcast platforms. So whether you're using Apple Podcasts or Google Podcast, whatever, we're on all of them. Although our audience is Central Ohio, really the issues are national issues. So we do a lot of work dealing with employment issues in Central Ohio, but we're also looking at housing, transportation. We do discovery, and we try to talk to people about new issues. You came on as a guest and talked about how hard it is to be in the media during an election season. Yeah. So we have lots of folks coming in. We drop 2 programs a month.
Again, that's called the Looking Forward Our Way podcast. So I'm an employer, and I like what you're saying. I'm like, I got to find some of these older workers.
Yes.
They're going to help me out. What can I do to retain, recruit, and hire qualified older job seekers?
Over and above everything that an employer does in today's economy is make sure you are retaining the people you have. And I'm really saying this for any age. Do what you can to keep the people who are really adding value to your organization. The hardest thing is to communicate with staff. Employers are almost afraid to ask questions because they don't know what it's going to lead to. But it is so expensive to recruit. Keep the people you have. Think about what you can say, what you can do to help that older adult. If it's okay, let me give you an example.
Sure.
This is several years ago, way before the pandemic, but I think it truly talks about the value of an employer talking to a group of workers. There was a factory on the East Coast that specialized in men's high-end ties for suits. Mm-hmm. These women and they were all females, and they were all over 50, they did all of this work by hand. These were expensive ties. Well, the employer realized we're not going to keep these people for very long. They're going to go someplace else and make more money. It's hard work, on and on and on. So they sat down and they talked with all of these female workers and said, what can we do to keep you here? What can we do to help you do your job? The only thing they asked for was flexibility. If it was a younger person who was taking care of children or grandchildren, they couldn't be there 8 to 5. An older person, maybe they couldn't get up that early in the morning and they wanted to work a little later in the day. They literally came to the conclusion that all they had to do was give each person a key to the building. Then they could go in anytime they wanted, any time of the day, night, weekends, whatever, and put in their 40 hours or however many hours their schedule required. And they took care of the problem.
Yeah.
And their work improved and went up. The sales went. It was just a great situation. So that's what employers need to do. First, look and see who you have, who really is important for you to retain. Do what you can to do that. The other thing that we've noticed happening, and it's still happening, employers don't know how to do job descriptions or job postings.
Okay.
And they don't like to spend the time updating them. So what's going to happen with older workers, they are going to assume they need to have everything on that job description, which is really not the truth.
Right.
So you need to look at your job description and the job postings and make sure that it is, I don't want to say the minimum of what you need, but that it's a true picture, because an older worker will self-select themselves out of the pool. So you're losing people before you even get started. Again, I'd mentioned about flexibility of scheduling, giving people some more flexibility, maybe a shorter lunch hour and coming in a little bit later, being more flexible and looking at benefits, because an older worker, what they're going to need in terms of benefits is definitely going to be different than for a younger person. I mentioned in a workshop I did in March that employers are looking to help young people pay their student loan. Well, an older worker likely doesn't have a student loan. However, they may be paying to park if the building's downtown and they have to pay to park in a garage. So look at a stipend that pays for parking. I mean, there are ways to do it, and often it is much cheaper for the benefits for an older worker than it is for a younger person. It's not okay to pay an older person less. So also realize that older applicants, they're getting smart in terms of this job application process, and they know where to go to salary.com and see what the going rates are. So don't think because you have an older person that you can get away with paying them less money. Over and above everything else, you really need to communicate with the people that you have.
Training is always the key to a lot of jobs, but
Sure.
For older workers, it's also very important.
It is, because again, they may have been in a type of position in which they excelled, but it's not what they're looking to do now. They may not want to manage anymore, but they may need some computer skills. So there are ways, but as I mentioned, Columbus Public Library has incredible resources that are free to a library card holder, which you don't even have to live in the city of Columbus to get a Columbus Library card. There are places that you can go. There are organizations that provide free or very low-cost training.
I want to make sure we don't run out of time for this, so I'm going to go ahead and bring something up now. What are the resources that are available out there to older job applicants? If you're over 50 and you're looking for a job, where are some of the places you can turn that can really help you out?
Right, absolutely. And most folks have heard of Ohio Means Jobs, which is the state of Ohio's program to help those who are job seeking, as well as helping the employers. And there are lots of different programs for anybody. But also for both job seekers and employers, realize that we are truly have the gift of wonderful nonprofits in Central Ohio. The specific groups that I have been most working with are New Directions Career Center, Jewish Family Services, and Goodwill Columbus. Those are phenomenal organizations and do a great job of really helping people. Jewish Family Services, it's open to anyone. It doesn't matter your cultural background. Use their services. They do a great job. New Directions Career Center traditionally has worked with women who are in transition, but they truly do open their doors for any job seeker, as does Goodwill. They're not just training those with disabilities. They have training programs for everyone. But there are other organizations. Workforce Development Center did a project, and we came up with 40 organizations in Central Ohio who do job search help for clients. So they're just, if you are in the Columbus area, these are great organizations. If you're not in the Columbus area, go to your local library, call your chambers of commerce, call your county aging office. They may have some resources for you. Definitely do the Ohio Means Jobs program in your county. There are lots of places that you can go. Employers, you are not by yourself in getting help. There are a lot of employers using all of these resources.
And I look around and I see that unemployment is 3% So obviously with unemployment so low, employers need workers.
Exactly. And this isn't going to change. I mean, the economy is going gangbusters. So what's important in all of this message is do a great job with the people you have, keep the people you have, really be flexible when you're looking at your applicants. Realize that someone is going to come to you with skills that are transitioning from a different background to working in your organization. But give people an opportunity. See what it is that they can do for you.
And on the other side of that, the older applicants must put their best foot forward.
Absolutely. Don't go into an interview with, woe is me, you're not going to hire me because I'm old. That's not going to help.
Yeah.
Again, be organized in your in the job search process. Dress for success. That's never going to be to your detriment. Always go in realizing that, yes, you may see the people walking around in T-shirts and shorts, but that's not how you go into to interview. Learn new skills before you're even going on the job market. And again, go to your local library. There are places that can help you. If they don't have the training, they can tell you where to go to get that training. Practice interviewing. I think interviewing is probably the hardest part of the job search process. It takes a lot to get in front of the person. Then all of a sudden you look at them with the deer in the headlights look and not make your case. You have built skills over decades. You are a perfectly qualified job applicant, but you have to get that message across to the employers. They can't guess. It's your job to make sure they know how wonderful you are. You're valuable. Just make that your message. You are a valuable job applicant.
Is it okay for a business to look at an older applicant and say, how long do you think you want to do this?
Oh, no, it's not okay. And if you're not going to ask a younger person that who's likely to leave you in 3 months, why would it be okay to ask an older person?
What's good for the older worker is good for the younger worker and vice versa.
And the other part of the coin then is, the other side of the coin is that the older applicant doesn't go into the employer and say, oh, I just need to work 2 more years till I can retire.
Right.
That's not a message either.
Yeah. Well, Carol, you always bring us such great information, and we've just scratched the surface on this topic. So I would really love if you could come back again.
For you, Mark, anytime.
All right. That's what I wanted to hear.
Exactly.
Dr. Carol Ventresca has been our guest today on the program. Looking Forward Our Way. It's a podcast. Also, lookingforwardourway.com is the website. And Carol, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for listening to Columbus Concerns, a public affairs presentation of North American Broadcasting. You can send questions or comments about today's show to Columbus Concerns in care of this station, 1458 Dublin Road, Columbus 43215. Or email us at columbusconcerns@napcomedia.com.
I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Food. Our survival relies on it. Yet every day in Central Ohio, nearly 1 million pounds of it enters the landfill. When we choose to throw food away, we're choosing to discard all the resources that were invested along the way. Not to mention the money that's being tossed out. But together, we can make choices that make a difference in our community and protect our environment. Learn more at SaveMoreThanFood.org, a program of SWACO.